Okay, so for us, we're going to be dividing decimals by whole numbers only. Now, if you want to extend that, then you're more than welcome to. I'm only going to assign you the part where you're dividing with whole numbers, but you can continue the lesson and go into dividing decimals by decimals, etc. if you want to for an extension. Extension is fine. Just make sure you keep in the same track, right? Don't change topics, but you're certainly welcome to move forward in the same topic. So dividing decimals, we're going to talk about how to divide decimals. But the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to write out some steps for dividing decimals, because really there are no steps for dividing decimals because it's just long division. So dividing decimals. And then we're going to go through an Education Perfect lesson on it. And your homework will be an Education Perfect lesson. Yes. Dividing decimals. Oh, I left off the C. Hey, it's not English class. Give me a break. No? Okay. That's fine. It's probably fine. I won't give you a break either, will I? Okay. So dividing decimals. So what we're going to do is we're simply going to use long division. Guys, okay? All right? And remember, when you're using long division, okay, you have the three parts of long division. You have the number you're dividing into, the number you're dividing by, and then the answer. The one you're dividing by is called the divisor. The one you're dividing into is called the dividend. And we talk about what the answer is called when you divide? Starts with a Q. Quotient. There you are. Good. Excellent. Right? So those three parts. And it's important that you understand the language behind the math, because later you might be asked to tell us what the dividend is or simply find the quotient. If someone asks you to find the quotient, that means you need to use what operation? Division. Yeah. Long division in this case, right? Okay? All right. So divisor, dividend, quotient. So all we're going to do is to do long division with decimals. All you need to do is put the decimal. Again, we are only going to be working with numbers that have decimals in the dividend. The divisors will always be whole numbers for us for what we're doing now. Later, that won't be true. We're going to move forward. But for now, it'll always be in the dividend. In the dividend, into the quotient. Notice you're doing this before you do any division. Right? So before you do any of the division, you're just going to put that decimal from the dividend into the quotient. And all you're going to do is just go straight up. Don't move it anywhere else. It just goes straight up. So in other words, the decimal in your answer is going to be in the exact same position as the decimal in your dividend. Okay? So let's just look at a quick example here. Say, for example, you had 1.234, real creative there, aren't I? Divided by 5. Is there a decimal in my dividend? Yes. That means there needs to be a decimal in my, what's it called? Quotient. And where will that decimal be? Straight up above where it was in the dividend. All right? And after that, you just do the long division ignoring the decimals. Because you've already got your decimal where it needs to be, then you don't have to pay attention to it anymore. Okay? So then, just perform long division. Oops. Spelling is not my strong suit today, is it? Long division as if the decimal wasn't there. You're simply going to ignore it. So all you're going to focus on is the long division with the numbers, just like you did when we looked at long division. Okay? So, does the division change because it's a decimal? Nope. And as long as you're dividing by a whole number. Now again, remember, this is going to change a little bit if you were dividing by a decimal. We're dividing a decimal by a whole number. So I might need to put that. By a whole number. Because it's slightly different if you divide by another decimal. So all we're going to do is move the decimal straight up into our quotient and then divide the numbers just like you always would. Sound good? Yeah. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to an Education Perfect lesson and look at some of those. And then you're going to have an Education Perfect lesson that only focuses on this one task. Okay? And this will be the last task before we start. We have one more lesson, and then we'll start the practice and the preparation for our exam, our assessment. Our assessment is going to be not this coming Friday, but the next Friday. Now, here's the bad news on that. First of all, it's a Friday. So I know y'all are always exhausted by Friday, right? And guess what period it's going to be? Last period, 6th period. So that means you need to make sure to get it wrapped around your head that you are going to have a test on an assessment that Friday, last period. Okay, hold on just 1 second. And that it doesn't matter what else has happened that day, you need to be prepared for it. So rest, just mentally prepare yourself for it. Because usually what happens the 6th period on a Friday, yeah, you're tired, you actually finished class about 4th period, right? That can't happen this time. Yes. Oh, wait, actually, she had her hand up first. Mm-hmm. Yes, no, maybe. All right. Okay. So in this lesson, we're going to look at dividing decimals using long division. And again, they're going to carry it out. So you could carry this out if you wanted to. You could go back to this lesson of dividing decimals and on your own. You know that you can go to any content in Education Perfect by simply going to math, then number, and then picking the topic. So if you want to go on, move forward and look at how to divide decimals by decimals, which is something that you'll learn next year anyway, then you're more than welcome to. But for this level, what we do is divide decimals by whole numbers. Okay? So using long division. So when you're doing long division, it's important to know where each thing is. We talked about that. What's the number you're dividing by called? It's the pinky orangey one there. The divisor. And you can just sing out, that's fine. What's the number you're dividing into called? The dividend. What's the answer you get when you do the division? The quotient. Okay, quotient. All right? So, good. I can't pronounce your names, but you can't pronounce math words. That's okay. It's a good trade-off. All right? So, make sure you know which one's which, because again, you will be asked later in the math in this course to find the quotient of two numbers, which means you need to do the what? Division, right? Okay, good. All right. So again, all you need to do using division with decimals using long division is simply take that decimal from the, what's it called under there? Dividend, and move it, how? Move it straight up to the quotient. There you go, straight up to the quotient. And after that, then the long division is just the same. You can just ignore it. So you'll see here they've done an example. They've done an example. The 22.47, they moved the decimal straight up. Then they said 3 goes into 22 how many times? 7. 3 times 7 is 21. they didn't show, I'm a little disappointed in them. Subtract, right? And 22 minus 21 gives us the 1. 3 goes into 14 how many times? It's right there, guys. 4, right? 4 times 3 is 12. Subtract 14 minus 12 gives you that 2. Bring down your next number. 27 divided by 3 goes in 9 times. And 27 minus 27 makes 0. And I'm happy when I get 0 when I'm doing division because that means that I am what? Finished. Yeah? Okay. So all you're going to do is just divide as you normally would, ignoring the decimal. Your decimal will already be where it needs to be. Okay? All right. So this one is dividing a decimal by decimal. You don't have to look at that one because we're not doing that, right? Okay? So always has to be a kitten or a puppy or something, you know, just to make you happy. All right. So let's look at nope, that's your homework. I don't want to look at that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make up some problems and put them up for you. Okay? But actually, I might not make up some problems. I might look them in the book because I need for them to work. So hold on just one moment. So here we go. So the first thing I need to do is set it up as long division. So I need to write out my long division. What number is going to go inside the division symbol? 77.4, exactly. That's the number I'm dividing into. The number I'm dividing by is what? 6. So that goes out front. It's called the, anybody? Divisor. Excellent. Now, my dividend has a decimal in it. So I need to take care of that before I do anything else. But all I need to do is what? Just move it straight up. Exactly. And put it right in the quotient where it is in the dividend. It's not going to move. Now I start dividing. So the first number I have there is a 7. 6 will go into 7 how many times? 1 time, right? Right? So then remember the steps are divide, then multiply, then subtract. It's a little messy, but divide, then multiply, subtract. 7 divided by 6 goes in 1 time. 1 times 6 is what? 6. Subtract those two. 7 minus 6 gives you what? 1. Then, I'm not done because it's not a 0, right? So that means bring down the next number and then repeat that process. 6 goes into 17 how many times? 2 times. Then multiply. 2 times 6 is 12. Subtract that. What's 17 minus 12? 5. Okay. Not done yet because remember you're not done until you get a what? 0. So let's bring down the next number of 4. 6 goes into 54 how many times? 9 times. 9 times 6 is 54, right? And 54 minus itself makes what? 0. And that's how we know we're done, right? And so what is my completed answer? 12.9. How'd we do? Okay? Okay? Again, remember, some of you are going to still be a little weak with your multiplication tables. That's fine. You just take your time and use some strategies. Think about, and you can even list some multiples of 6 if you need to, right? 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12, and blah, blah, blah. And down to 6 times 10 is really easy. Why? 60. Okay, 6 times 5 is pretty easy. So you can make a list of numbers that 6 divides into pretty quickly, either by multiplying or by simply adding, counting, right? 6 and 6 are 12, so that's 2 of them. So you don't even need to really write all of those pieces, but you can. So if you're still struggling with your multiplication tables, the best way to fix that is to write the multiplication table for the number that you're using, right? So 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 4 gives you 24. 6 times 5 is 30, etc. Right? And if you at least write it till 10, don't need to write bigger than 10. Why? Because if it's bigger than 10, then you've missed a number already. Because if it's bigger than if it goes in 10 times, more than 10 times, then when you're doing long division, that means it would have gone into the other number beforehand. So, okay? But at least it'll help you with your multiplication facts as well. All right. How'd it look? Good? Bad? Indifferent? Did the decimal change anything? No. All right. Do some of you still hate long division? Yeah? Perfectly fine. Doesn't bother me any. And yeah. And you'll get better at it. Okay, here we go. All right, let's try another one. Say we have 19.4 divided by... Oh, sorry, wait a minute. I've written it down wrong. 19.2 divided by 4. Now, this time I even wrote it as the long division for you, so all you have to do is go. All right? 19.2 divided by 4. Same thing. I'm going to give you a minute to work on it by yourself. A minute to work on it with a buddy after you're checking. And remember, I'm here if you need me. Oh, there's your minute working it alone. So now, check it with your neighbor if you're finished. If you're not finished, then you can check with the neighbor to see how you're doing. How are we going?
Why are you throwing it? You still want to use it?
So what do you get as an answer? 4.8. Excellent. So the decimal in our dividend just moves straight up. Okay. For some reason, I'm not writing. I don't know what I've done.
Maybe you need to reconnect it.
Okay. And now we just do the long division. So starting with 1. How many times will 4 go into 1? Zero times, right? Okay, so that means I need to move on to the next digit as well, right? If the first digit's too small, then use the second 2 digits. 4 goes into 19 how many times? 4 times. Then multiply. 4 times 4 is 16, right? Let me get rid of that line. I drew it for effect. We'll subtract. 19 minus 16 is 3. Bring down our 2 because we know we're not done. 4 goes into 32 how many times? 8 times. 8 times 4 is 32. So when I subtract 32 from itself, I get, which means I'm done. And my decimal's already there for me where it should be, so 4.8. It's good? Okay. All right. Excellent job, guys. Good. Okay. So what we're going to do for the rest of the time is I'm going to release your Education Perfect assignment. You're just going to be doing some long division using decimals, right? So the same process. Now here's the deal though, guys. I want you to be showing your working. So in your book, write down the problem, show the long division, and then choose the correct answer. Now, some of them you won't have to. They're just multiple choice, right? You'll just be choosing the one with the right decimal in the right spot. But for everything else, you must show your work, okay?